I'm going to talk today about a project I'm heading up. It's a pilot at the Open Technology Institute called Smart Congress, and I'm looking at ways to harness disaggregated knowledge across the USA for common purposes, and in the process, update and modernize Congress. Celia talked about what I call the lobotomy of Congress. This happened in the 1990s. It wasn't just the OTA, which was the world's premier scientific organization for a legislative body. It was also a cut of committee staff and a lot of other of the subject matter experts on Capitol Hill. Meanwhile, when I came to Capitol Hill, I was here as a national security staffer dedicated to both Democrats and Republicans to help them deal with post-Cold War threats. I arrived after the dismantlement of the system. And what was interesting at that time is we went from this world that was linear, predictable, and rational to one that was chaotic, random sometimes, like extreme weather, and very human. And I ended up working a lot with the military. And as you can see here, this 1991 was really the last hard power war. And Afghanistan was much more about social resilience. Well, social resilience and this human-centered security is what fell between the cracks of the committees throughout the 90s. And I would argue that even today, Congress is better preparing to fight Napoleon than it is to deal with any number of global threats that we're dealing with, from weather to disease to the problems of terrorism in societies. These are the policy responsibilities of Congress. They're pretty substantial, broad, and deep, yet we have very little to help Congress with this. What I like to say is in the 90s, since there was no complex sorting and filtering system for data, what we didn't have really a left and right. We had what I call the leftovers and the righteous. This is noise as a criteria for decision making. This is what often happens to wonks. I'm a wonk, so I feel like I can make fun of them. It's a lot of data. This is the 24-hour news cycle. And what we often get interpreting complex policy issues for us is Mr. Limbaugh and others. I know there's that equivalent on the left and the right. But what I have in mind is giving district offices what I call technology mashup fellows, who can take some of the actual functions of oversight of Congress that require expertise, inventory the expertise, and share them with DC, because I really feel like everything's redistributing. We're not going to be able to do that much in Washington, DC anymore. We need to enable people outside of Washington to understand the functions of our central government, and that's the only way we're going to move from the old Soviet world to what I call the social capital world. And all of these qualities that we want to move toward, inclusiveness, more women in power, and the reduction of all of this, which happens in any centralized entropic state. And that is, like you mentioned a minute ago, I think the only way we're going to move away from this really sort of demoralized, depressed public, always sees DC as gloomy and unpleasant, to a much more sunshiny future where we can once again be seen as sort of premier practitioners of democratic practice.